Now I get back to what we were discussing yesterday regarding what kind of works that we ought to take up. And we have seen in the ancient times or even the present times, religion and ethics and this pursuit of philosophy, they were all supposed to be the Godward acts, and all that is not religious or high nature in philosophy or well versed in ethics was supposed to be non-religious. But we have seen the defect of all this was they divide society, they divide mankind even. And also we have seen critically how religion is only a kind of a veneer, if I can use the word, a kind of an outer shine. It doesn't take you too deep. As it is said, it only points you towards God, but it doesn't take you towards God. And then whatever little God experience we may have is purely an inner experience. It has nothing to do with the outer being. You may remain the same angry, passionate, lower nature, and yet have the inner experience. That's why some people are quite surprised and amazed that how is that this great sadhak was realized so much, he's still so angry, he's still so passionate and all that. You see, there is the big division, the inner and the outer. Unless one consciously works on the outer, it will remain what it is. You may have at the most an ethical robe, showing that you are really that kind of a quiet person. But this facade doesn't stay long. Sometime or the other, your true inner vital nature, your lower nature comes forth. So Sri Aurobindo and the mother are insisting on the conscious working of the inner. So that is the activity. So now coming to the yoga, because we have seen ethics, religion, and what do we have to say in Sri Aurobindo's yoga? A yoga turned towards an all-embracing realization of the Supreme will not despise the works or even the dreams, if dreams they are, of the cosmic spirit, or shrink from the splendid toil and many-sided victory which he has assigned to himself in the human creature. Well, if you have the book, it is the same Ascent of the Sacrifice, number 1. Mine is page 126. This is a new para, you can find that. 126. But his first condition for this liberality is that our works in the world too must be a part of the sacrifice offered to the highest and to none else, to the divine Shakti and to no other power, in the right spirit and with the right knowledge, by the free soul and not by the hypnotized bond slave of material nature. If a division of works has to be made, it is between those that are nearest to the heart of the sacred flame and those that are least touched or illumined by it because they are more at a distance, or between the fuel that burns strongly or brightly and the logs that if too thickly heaped on the altar may impede the ardor of the fire by the damp, heavy and diffused abundance. I think this is a very beautiful guideline for those of us who would like to follow this path. See, what does integral yoga tell you about works? Which kind of works? Religion has said this is good, this is bad. It is demarcated. But in Sri Aurobindo, he has a very simple division. And a division that is not really demarcated in books, not told to you by your priest or by somebody saying, this is the division. This division is purely your individual. You decide. No one else decides for you. So you see, immediately there is no pope, there is no father, there is no priest here to tell you, thou shalt do that and thou shalt not do that. This is an absolutely your individual choice. What is the division? If a division of works has to be made, it is between those that are nearest to the heart of the sacred flame and those that are least touched or illumined by it. Very simple. Those that take you Godward, those that take you towards your psychic being, and those that do not take you towards the psychic being, and they are at a distance, they are least touched or illumined. You see, now take an example what the mother herself said. She said politics is the last thing that can be spiritualized. There is a last human effort which can be touched and transformed by spirituality or a spiritual consciousness. So this little comment of mother throws a lot of light. So you can see what all is happening in our country, the whole corruption, every day you have a scam. So it is falsehood absolutely thick and gross. So she herself says, even spiritual consciousness, we cannot touch politics, that's the last thing to be transformed. So immediately we see in our life, we better avoid politics and if possible even politicians. It's not an individual, he may be good or bad. But politics as such is so much full of falsehood, it cannot be taken up for transformation right now. It may be cleansed and scanned, every day there is something or the other, somebody or the other is going to the jail and all that. So that is one work, as she is saying, or Aurobindo is writing, that is least touched or illumined by it. By the psychic flame, by the spiritual consciousness. So that is why in the beginning, I suppose, the mother, when she said, there is no politics in the ashram. Those who are coming to the ashram, do not involve yourselves in any politics, this party or that party, nothing to do. So that's one little example I can give you. But otherwise, in your personal life also, now you judge. Don't tell me, should I do this or should I do that? Mother normally never tells you, do this and don't do that. I mean, in my own life, I have seen cases, we had written to the mother, what do we do? She would give us a guideline of if you do this, this is the repercussion. If you do this, this is the result. Now the choice is yours. So this is how the individual has to bear the responsibility of his own choices. Because here, the masters, the spiritual masters have laid the path, but which one to tread, how far to go, how quick to go, is your job. So there is a tremendous individual effort in this yoga. And so, simple question, you do all that actions, thoughts, feelings that take you towards the divine. And all that does not take you, avoid it if you can. But there also, and he puts a beautiful example here, between fuel that burns strongly or brightly and the logs that if too thickly heaped on the altar may impede the ardor of the fire by the damp, heavy and diffused abundance. You see, I'm sure you have all seen a fire being, we create fire by putting woods together in any ceremony or anywhere you see. I mean, I remember my own childhood days in the village when my grandmother used to have the chula, put logs of wood, not logs but little sticks, But then what happens? You have to choose the right stick to put into the fire, really the dry one. That will burn well. But if you put something damp, full of moisture, if you put that, what happens? The fire itself goes away. There is only smoke. So if you put something damp, you are not only not creating fire, but you are extinguishing the existent fire. That's the danger. So what does it mean? How does it apply? In our life, if we want to go towards the divine, move towards the divine, those acts which are damp, heavy in the sense of full of ignorance, attachment, falsehood, lies, if you do those acts, then you will extinguish, if not extinguish, you will cover it, smoke cover your own psychic being. So then you will say, why is it that I am praying every day, meditating every day, nothing is happening? That's what we said yesterday. That this question of purification is there. We are having a little flame, we are having great prayers and bhakti, but as soon as we enter into life, we do all kinds of activities which are like this damp firewood. So they will extinguish, and what you will get is only a smoke, and a smoke of confusion. And that's why Sri Aurobindo comment that this is very dangerous. So there cannot be these two parallel things happening. One side you are doing a meditation, going to the samadhi, going to this Matan Mandir, all the nice good things, but in the proper, when you come to the day-to-day activity, if you take up things which are not conducive, you will not only not become spiritual, you may go far from spirituality. And here there is a letter, a conversation with mother. This same para that I read out to you in the class also. The same paragraph is read starting with a yoga turned towards an all-embracing realization of the Supreme. Now the question is, because we have said if a division of works has to be made, it is between those that are nearest to the heart of this sacred flame, etc. Now the question is, psychologically, to what does this division correspond to in our life? You see, as I was explaining to you, but there is a question here directly asked to the mother, and here is a reply. I suppose it is different for each one. That is exactly what I was telling you. What is the difference? Division? It is individual. So each one must find those activities which increase his aspiration, his consciousness, his deeper knowledge of things, and those which, on the contrary, mechanize him and bring him back more thoroughly into a purely material relation with things. It is difficult to make a general rule. You see, a very simple thought or a simple expression. So that's why we are so lucky to be in this integral yoga, because there are no specific rules, don't and do's, and yet there is such an individual guideline, an individual pressure almost. Because when the freedom is given to you, you feel much more pressurized, in the sense being responsible to yourself, you are under a greater tension. But in the religion, if you go to any other ashram, what happens? They say, do this at 7 o'clock, there is a puja at 9 o'clock, there is an arti at 10 o'clock. So you are not taking the responsibility upon yourself. You just see that 7 o'clock you are at the temple, 9 o'clock you are at this place, or 10 o'clock you are doing this puja. That is how, religion has not helped man to change, because religion has told you every day what you must do from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or maybe beyond. So you don't think for yourself. You don't take the responsibility on yourself. You just say, "Nahi, mera guru ne kaha, I have to go there. My master says you must do this." But it is, as my mother is telling, mechanize him. So religion mechanizes you. It takes away your individual initiative. So this mechanization, what? We lose the soul. There is nothing that elevates you. What we say routine. That's what I was really hitting at yesterday when I said, why do we come to the ashram? From Gujarat, from Bombay, Calcutta. don't make it into a routine thing. You do come, you ought to come, you should come, that's all fine. But inwardly, let it not be a routine act. That is the danger where Mother is saying that it should not mechanize him and bring him back more thoroughly into a purely material relation with things. So, each one must find those activities which increase his aspiration, his consciousness, his deeper knowledge of things. So she does not say do this act or this action, because that is immaterial. I may do the same act with a different consciousness, and that's what matters. So SOY Aurobindo and the Mother, they have never told us which acts are good, which acts are bad. But they tell us with what attitude you must do them. So these acts, she says, activities which increase aspiration and his consciousness and his deeper knowledge. Now for increasing aspiration, you can have many things. You can go to meditation, you can go to samadhi. Now you see slowly we are coming into these activities. Why do we go to samadhi? Why do we go to Matra Mandir? It is to increase the aspiration. So that must be the attitude. Not just saying, Are aaj samadhi nahi gaya. Why did you? It's not a routine thing. You go to samadhi, you go to Matra Mandir, you go to wherever your centers are there. You go there, you celebrate the birthdays. Why? If you think it is a kind of a general rule, don't do that. Now we have a lot of these pujas that take place. I see here Durga Puja, this puja, and the Bengalis are great in these Durga Pujas. I have attended a few of them. What happens? All the ladies are at the best dresses and the best jewelry. Men in their new kurtas. They go there, they do one little arti and put it tikka, and then the whole time gossip, criticism, chatting, eating. So what has happened? You have done this more as a mechanism. Hey, puja ache jete hobe, bikele ei ache. So that's the kind of a jete hobe we have to go. Is a mechanical thing. If you go there, is there an aspiration in you? No. It is to show off your dresses, show off your food, show off your status, and have a chat and criticism. So on the contrary, there is a problem, because the moment it's a mass and a group consciousness, your consciousness drops. So you see all these things, why SOY Aurobindo and the Mother are not so much for all this religiosity. Because religiosity, religionism, with all its paraphernalia, it brings the human consciousness lower. That's why here we don't have any group activities. We have meditation in the evening, the samadhi, or Thursday and Sunday at this thing. But those who want to go for aspiration, there's no chit chat there, there's no conversation, nothing. It's an absolute silent thing. But to all these pujas that we have throughout the country, be it Gujarat or Bengal, South India or anything. So that is what we need to understand. Now we are getting the answer, why do I come for darshan to Pondicherry? For increasing this consciousness, for increasing this aspiration. So we can do all activities, even for 10 minutes, if it helps my aspiration, fine. So that is the raison d'etre of us going for a meditation here or there. It can be 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, but at least you are trying to aspire. Otherwise, once you come out onto the workshop, that element of aspiration is not there, because you have to work properly. So Mother would tell us activities that help us in aspiration, in consciousness. This is and also is consciousness. You see, what is the question of how do we increase our consciousness in our day-to-day activity? One of the things I would say is to choose a proper company. Proper, not company, that's a companion, work. So if you go with kind of wrong people, you are bound to be in a lower consciousness. Wrong or right means what? At that moment, at that stage of your growth, you may want to avoid some people who have some bad habits of drinking, of pubs going, of this. It's his wish he is going or her wish, but you don't join them, because the moment you go to the pub, the moment you are sharing with the drunkard, then your consciousness goes down. So I will say, look, you do what you want. It's not my business. But I will not accompany you because my consciousness will go down. So there could be many activities. So Mother has given a very beautiful guideline. Those that increase aspiration, consciousness and deeper knowledge of things. And those which on the contrary mechanize him and bring him back more thoroughly into a purely material relation with things. You see, we have all these marriages and birthdays and all that. They are getting bad to worse nowadays. Of course, all of you know that very well. But what's happening there also? The couple is getting married, but rest of the 500, 600,000 people are completely in a low consciousness. What Mother is telling us, purely material relations. We talk about business, we talk about giving things, we talk about jewelry, we talk about saris, we talk about your money matters. So, she would say, marriage, let there be. Let it be a simple one. Why spend crores of rupees and just to show off that you are rich? It is a completely a falsehood to spend money like that. People say, no, I am a minister, I am so and so, spending 10 crores of rupees on my daughter's marriage is nothing. But that is exactly where money is in the hands of the falsehood. For Aurobindo writes in the book The Mother. So those who throw away money like that are definitely being used by a wrong false force. So I am giving you examples, you know them, you can analyze them yourselves and find out. Now the question is, that means that everything ought to be done exactly as an offering? Question. Mother, truly speaking, it depends more on the way of doing a thing than on the thing itself. Underline that sentence. It all depends more on the way of doing a thing than on the thing itself. Because if they say don't do this action or activity, what's the problem? Imagine the mother says don't do this action. How would you respond to that? Then what would be repercussions of this? Can you answer, anyone? If given an action, these actions don't do, these actions you can do. What are the repercussions of that? Pardon? Inner attitude. But if mother were to say, don't do this, I am saying these activities as she is saying are the actions. Why? What is the problem in that? If she says, don't do this and do that. Pardon? Blindly everyone will follow it, resulting in what? That results in? Mechanical, but it tends to become religion. You see, the moment you have this do's and don'ts, it's a blind following, and ultimately it will crystallize into an ism. You have yellow dresses, you have this dresses, red saris. So that's why Mother and Aurobindo don't mention the activity. That means that activity is circled with black ink and saying that is not spiritual, rejected. So no activity is non-spiritual. It all depends on your consciousness. With what attitude, with what consciousness. You take up some work which is quite material, like cleaning the floor or dusting a room. Well, it seems to me that this work can lead to a very deep consciousness if it is done with a certain feeling for perfection and progress. And a beautiful example. There's not a big action. Nowadays, I think most of us should take it up, because getting ayahs and maid help becoming more difficult. So we should all sweep and clean our own houses instead of yelling, saying, "Oh, today my eye has not come, what am I supposed to do?" So here she says, even that action, sweeping a floor, the commonest, simplest action that most of the housewives in India do that, at least in abroad they don't do that. They have all these machines. So she says, sweeping the floor, if it's done with a certain feeling for perfection and progress, a beautiful line. You see, sometimes our ayah comes and she does the work and goes away. And Deepshika takes the sweep and then she starts doing it again. There's so much of dust comes out. What's the main point? That when you do a thing, do with the attitude of perfection and progress. Otherwise, you are like an ayah just sweeping that, gone. But every little vessel that you are wiping, you're cleaning, do it with this attitude of perfection. So that's so simple and so magnificent, I would say, in my way, that cleaning vessels or doing this, every little thing with a sense of perfection. Somebody has arranged these flowers, is there as a sense of perfection. Because remember, friends, anything done with an attitude, with an inner attitude of offering and an outer attitude of perfection, you add these two in every act and you are deeply spiritual. So that is a beautiful bridge for the outer life and the inner life. Inner life, I'm saying, "Ma, I'm arranging the flowers and act for you." Outer life, no, I must do it very well, a beautiful combination. Will the print go there? You see, she has put this green in order to have a combination with the yellow. So that is a sense of aesthetic perfection. So, in everything that we do, you sweep your floor, every corner, every nook and corner, and that, if it can be practiced in every act of our life, that is truly the spiritual life. And not to say this is non-spiritual, this is spiritual. While other work considered of a higher kind, as for example studies or literary and artistic work, if done with the idea of seeking fame or for the satisfaction of one's vanity or for some material gain, will not help you to progress. Incredible. You see, it's a great artist or a great poet or a great man of literature. If he thinks that he is doing an important thing, he is becoming famous, my articles are published everywhere, my pictures are there on every TV. He says those people do not progress. Spiritually, mind you, we are speaking only about a spiritual man. So for us, as SOY Aurobindo said, and I misquoted SOY Aurobindo every time I say that, in God's eyes there is nothing small, be it a shoemaker or a king, all is the same. Because as she says, if a shoemaker is stitching the shoes with that attitude of offering to the divine, he is much greater in consciousness than the king who rules with his pride and with his pomp and name and fame. So that's exactly what the mother is telling. Studies or literary activities and artistic activity done with the idea of seeking fame or for the satisfaction of one's vanity or some material gain will not help you to progress. So this is already a kind of classification which depends more on the inner attitude than on the outer fact. But this classification can be applied to everything. You see how beautifully she has given the guideline and yet not imprisoned you with this particular activity. It's a beautiful thing that somebody does it for perfection and for progress. So it matters not what activity. Of course, there is a kind of work which is done only for purely pecuniary and personal reasons, like the one, whatever it may be, which is done to earn a living. That attitude is exactly the one SOY Aurobindo compares with the damp logs of wood which are heaped so thick the flame cannot leap up. It has something dark and heavily dull about it. Again, a note for all of us, and especially those who are on jobs. I think most of us here seem to be retired people, but I think a few of you may be doing jobs. I think these seminars are really meant for retired people. No youngster comes here because अरे बहुत दूर है, रेड्डी साहब का लेक्चर बाद में सुन लेंगे. That's what I'm saying. I see two young faces. But most people, they say, बाद में देखेंगे. This life is long for spirituality. Now let me enjoy my work and let me do my job. And these are the jobs, Aurobindo says, for purely pecuniary and personal reasons, like the one, whatever it may be, which is done to earn a living. So all of us have done or are doing some jobs for earning. And this is but natural, every one of us, we have to do that. But these are precisely the works that are damp logs. I mean, that is incredible. You see what we explained in the, what Aurobindo told us here, that between fuel that burns strongly or brightly and the logs that, if too thickly heaped on the altar, may impede the ardor of the fire by their damp, heavy and diffused abundance. So those of us who are going to the jobs for the sake of the jobs, they are the real damp logs. So what do we do? Throw away the logs? I cannot leave my job. I need money. I need to earn. I need to take care of my children. So this is the challenge that is there. How to use these logs of wood which are damp, and then she says these are specifically jobs that we do pecuniary, that is for earning money. That's the real question. Because of this impossibility of bridging the damp wood and the bright wood and the fuel, most of the people they postpone spirituality to after retirement. That's the famous saying in India, 60 saal ka baad I'll go to the Char Dham, and I'm doing that this year myself. It's not after retirement. But because after retirement you don't do this pecuniary job. Now I can give full attention to God, I can be walking on the path to spirituality. But all these years, 60, 61, 62, I had to fend my life and my family. But this is the real thing. How can we do the jobs that are meant to earn us our living and at the same time do yoga? Well, we'll come to that discussion. I won't take time on that. But that's a question that we need. And because of that, there were two reactions. One was becoming ascetics. They said, no, I don't want to do job anything. I become a sannyas, and then I go for begging bowl and just so leave the works because they are a damp log. Or else postpone all spiritual works to after retirement. Because my son is in America, my daughter is in Australia, so they will send me money. I won't take a job, but now I can go to the Char Dham, to this temple, to that ashram. And the mother told me, but when you go at that time, what can you give to God? Jeb khali, your heart is empty, your body has BP and sugar and kidney stone and stomach backache, and your mind is too exhausted. Are yaar, 35 saal mein padhaya ho, my God. So you have really trampled upon your mind and exhausted it. You have nothing to offer to God. Emotions, well, you have had all the family jhagras, saas and bahu, this and that, every jhagra that is possible. So emotionally you are spent. So physically to hai hai, ek lathi baki hai bas, you have to bring a walking stick. So the mother says, what can you give to God at that time? 60 saal ke baad to ja rahe ho, theek hai, but you are going empty. Maybe nowadays I can go to Char Dham on helicopter paying 8,000 rupees for 14 kilometers of trekking because I am rich. But does God see you that how you have come? So what attitude have you come? So the mother is very clear that after retirement or at that time when you think that you are now turning to spirituality is an absolutely wrong attitude. Be spiritual or practice spirituality when you are young. I can still hear those words because she spoke to me right in front of me. She says, practice spirituality when you are young. Because when you are young, you have a good body, your emotions are alive, your mind is active. So give that Lord these living things and not dead wood. After 60 you are a dead wood. Well, I hope I am not that dead. I am still alive. I am 66 now. But fortunately, the ideal has kept me alive. But normally, what is the ideal? Nothing. You earn your living. You have sent your children to America or to Australia. You have 3 grandchildren. You go every time for babysitting, come back. No ideal. That's why it's important to have this ideal in front of you. So age will not matter at that time. You keep working, 66, 76, 86, well 96 if you can reach. So that's the motivating power. The meaning of idealism is it's a motivating force. If you think, nahi mera ho gaya, I've done 60 years of work and nothing more, comfy. And then the mother says, the moment you give up and say, I have done enough, somebody listens to these words. That's somebody called Yama. He says, now the candidate is getting ready for me. He has given up life. He says, mujhe aur kuch karna nahi hai, I have done all my work. So that Yama writes in his name, in his list, the next fellow is this. What it means is, mother would say, the moment you say, I have done enough, you start aging. Otherwise, till the age of 90, you did not age. You can be as active. But the moment you have this psychological notion that I have done enough, it's the beginning of your end. So be very careful. That's why when people say, I'm a retired person, I laugh at it. I said, retired means what? I mean, you may be retired from a particular job. But you know, that when a car tire gets old and worn out, what do we do? In a car tire, what do we do when it gets worn out? Retrade it. So we have to retrade ourselves, not retirement, because doesn't mean that you throw the tire out. You can retrade it and use it for another couple of years or a few years more. So let's not retire saying my age is 60 or 62. You retrade it. That means you start another work, another dedication, another offering. Don't think your offering has come to an end. And for offering you have got to work. If you meditate and to say, Mother, I am meditating, that's what you take, is not good. You have to physically work. I mean, you work voluntarily, you work with payment, you take remuneration, doesn't matter, but you have to continue to work, because work is the best channel of offering. So, of course, now, and this brings us to something which I have already told you several times, but which presents a problem not yet solved by circumstances. I think I have already spoken to you about it, but still I shall speak about it again this evening because of this sentence of Aurobindo's. Well, I am going to read out something which is really applicable to all of us, and then especially those of you who come from outside and those who are inside in Pondicherry. It's a very beautiful message. At the beginning of my present earthly existence, Mother is telling, I came into contact with many people who said that they had a great inner aspiration and urge towards something deeper and truer, but that they were tied down, subjected, slaves to the brutal necessity of earning their living, and that this weighed them down so much, took up so much of their time and energy that they could not engage in any other activity, inner or outer. I heard this very often. I saw many poor people. I don't mean poor from the monetary point of view, but poor because they felt imprisoned in a material necessity, narrow and deadening. I think this will be the attitude of many people. You know, I have had a lot of conversations with many people. They said, no, it's impossible to practice spirituality because look at this Bombay life. I have to get up at 5:30, 6:30, catch the tram, and where can I practice spirituality? I have to earn my living. I got 2 children, I got an ailing mother, I got a backburn. They give you all the excuses why they have to. Not excuses, it can be reality too. So if you ask them to practice spirituality, they will say, I don't have time. We have no time. If only I could be given food and shelter free, then I will think of going to God. But now you see, I have to slog it out. So mother heard this complaint or this kind of a, not aspiration, but desire from many people. She says, I was very young at that time, and I always used to tell myself that if ever I could do it, I would try to create a little world. Oh, quite a small one, but still. A small world where people would be able to live without having to be preoccupied with food and lodging and clothing and the imperative necessities of life, so as to see whether all the energies freed by this certainty of a secure material living would turn spontaneously toward the divine life and the inner realization. This is for all of us to answer ourselves. You don't have to tell me. You just stand in front of your mirror and then speak to yourself. That this dream of the mother, where she says, if I can give to people something, a secure material living. Maybe many of us have achieved a secure material living. Bank balance to rakha hai wahan par. Insurance is there. And my children are in America. Koi problem nahi hai mujhe. But how much have we turned to spirituality? Turn towards a divine life and inner realization. So she had this dream, childhood dream, which she realizes, in fact she says that, well, towards the middle of my life, at least what is usually the middle of a human life, the means was given to me and I could realize this, that is, create such conditions of life. And I have come to this conclusion that it is not this necessity which hinders people from consecrating themselves to an inner realization, but that it is a dullness, a tamas, a lack of aspiration, a miserable laxity, and a don't care attitude, and that those who face even the hardest conditions of life are sometimes the ones who react most and have the intensest aspiration. That is mother's conclusion. I mean, do you have understood this? In fact, there is another conversation she does sadly mention she is disappointed. What she says here, it is not this necessity which hinders people from consecrating themselves to an inner realization. She says, I have given food and shelter and clothing, and still people are busy quarreling. People are busy pulling each other down. In the beginning they said, if only I had the 3-room dining room and then one prosperity at the end of the month, I would turn to spiritual life intensely with all my energies and time. But human consciousness, as she puts it very tragically, full of dullness and tamas and lack of aspiration, a miserable laxity and an I don't care attitude. This is the reality of this ashram, of every ashram. We think that if I take an ashray, a shelter in an ashram, and they are giving me 3 times meal, 11:30 bell basti, and we are all standing in the line. But really, this facility is given. You don't have to think of the next food, next meal, you don't have to think of the next medical exam, medical help. But what is happening to our inner realizations? That's the tragic note that she has. And she said, I'm disappointed. So, it's not only here, it can be anywhere. That we have all the material security, but we are so busy with, and you see, you can understand, even if we have the material security, at the age of 62, the moment you resign from your job, you cannot take a volta face and say from tomorrow I am going to take up spirituality. How can you do that? For the last at least 45 years of your conscious life, you have followed a certain pattern of life, and at the age of 62 it will change overnight? No way. It continues. Your attachments, your relations, your family, your functions. You have been going to this place, you have been doing this thing, you continue to do that. So the mother gives a blunt conclusion. It is nothing to do with this necessity of him that this secure material living is all a bahana, an excuse for not following spiritual life. Because you have been telling, I got so much to do, so much work to do to earn money. But now that the facility is given, you don't turn to this inner realization. And the last line is really a big smash, For those who face even the hardest conditions of life are sometimes the ones who react most and have the intensest aspiration. So the thing is, a spiritual life has nothing to do with this external, outer, comfortable, secure, material life. Nothing to do. A poor man who is having a great problem for the next meal or for the next tablet for his body, he has a greater and intensest aspiration. And she says, they react most, they react to the outer life, higher life. So let us not be in this illusion that mujhe ab to kaam karna, I have to earn my living, and after that attitude of after retirement spirituality is an absolutely false idea. You see, even when we have in India in those ancient times, which we don't follow now, the 4 stages of life, brahmacharya and grihasthashram and vanaprastha and sannyasa. They asked you to take to sannyasa in the last stage. But nobody becomes a sannyasa overnight. But this sannyasahood has been prepared while he was in brahmacharya only. So he followed a spiritual trend while he was a young man. As the mother said, practice spirituality when we are young. So our ancient system was, you have to practice some spiritual things right in the beginning. Then you get into the grihasthashram, you earn wealth, you earn family, you earn children, everything. But this attitude, the inner attitude has not changed. Vanaprastha, it has become more intense, and sannyasa is a continuation. So this is what we have to remember, and unfortunately the youngsters are not ready. They say, no, my job is to pass my MBA, my job is to do the MBBS, my job is to do that, all your philosophies later. And then they get into married life, they have all the romances and SMSs and all that. One, I can see this image of people like a rat race, blindly going one to the other. Your 10th class is over, pass the 12th class, get into this. You see the children who aimlessly are moving on like a herd of sheep. Because he is doing an MBA, I must do an MBA. Because she is doing an aimless life is a miserable life. So unfortunately, mother comes to a conclusion that man has to go through something else. It is not necessarily a secure material base that will guarantee him a spiritual life. That's all. I am waiting for the contrary to be proved to me. You see the note of tragedy there. I am waiting on the contrary to be proved to me. That means, mother, is because I had an insecure material life, I could not concentrate. She says, no, there is no exception. Everybody follows the same thing. I would very much like to see the contrary, but I haven't yet seen it, as there are many energies which are not utilized, since this terrible compulsion of having something to eat or a roof to sleep under or clothes on one's back does not exist. As one is sure of all that, there's a whole mass of energies which are not utilized for that. Well, they are spent in the idle stupidities, and of these, the foolishness which seems to me the most disastrous, to keep one's tongue going. Chatter, chatter, chatter. I haven't known a place where they chatter more than here. and say everything they should not say. Busy themselves with things they should not be concerned with. And I know it is merely an overflow of unused energy. Brilliant analysis. I mean, try to understand this. I mean, it's not only it's amazingly beautiful as knowledge, but suddenly you realize how true it is. So why is it that yogis and sannyasis don't speak too much? Why is it that spiritual man has no time to speak to others? Because as she says, when there is this unused energy, energy is not physical energy, vital energy. I mean, you have been given a kind of a spiritual energy within you, which even physical, vital, if you don't turn it to a God pursuit, then there's so much of energy left in you that you turn it on the wrong side. Instead of talking about God, you chatter. And then, you see, I mean, don't take it easy. She's so serious here. There's a whole mass of energies which are not utilized for that. Well, they are spent in idle stupidities. I mean, you know what we say in Hindi, addavana. Hours go on. We are involved with this addabaji, idle chatter. And of these, the foolishness which seems to me the most disastrous. See the word disastrous. I mean, it's not a simple word. Disastrous is to keep one's tongue going. Chatter, chatter, chatter. So this chattering is such a waste of energy. Most disastrous because it brings you a lot of wrong forces, connects you with the wrong people, and you are always on the external consciousness with the chatter. So of all the stupidities man does, this most stupidest thing is to chatter. We say, let's have a chat over the coffee as a normal. But what do we do during chat? दूसरों को निंदा करना. That's the underline. The meaning of chat equals दूसरों को निंदा करना. That means you criticize the other person. That is the theme of every chat. In a chat, you don't speak about life divine. अब क्या हुआ भाई chapter 19 में कुछ पढ़ा है क्या रेड्डी साहब? We never chat on the life divine or Savitri. At least I haven't yet seen anybody, including me. We never do that. So this is the calamity that we are in, disastrous thing. So if we can keep our mouth shut, I think we'll go much faster in our spirituality. That's all. So the division in works is perhaps not quite what one thinks. Well, that's why the mother's injunction, let's not chat. There's so much energy, time given to us, put it to proper use. And then this attitude of a secure material base, remember God has graced you with that through whatever means, but do the work for her, for the divine.
Well, we are now on page 134 of this chapter, this book. So we have just read out from the mother the comment that she gives on this para, starting with a yoga turn towards an all-embracing realization. And then what are the things that we ought to do? Those which take us toward the inner being, we should do that, and those which are a block, we should avoid that. And so as she said, it is not the activities which are important, but it is the attitude with which you do these activities is important. So I continue a little bit on that before we come to the new section. This then is the true relation between divine and human knowledge. It is not a separation into disparate fields, sacred and profane. That is the heart of the difference, but the character of the consciousness behind the working. So what we said, the attitude or the character of the consciousness, with what consciousness one is doing. So that is of greater importance. It says, now I take up a new section. So this is what Aurobindo gives us in broad about the works of knowledge. Now we turn towards works of love. If knowledge is the widest power of the consciousness and its function is to free and illumine, yet love is the deepest and most intense, and its privilege is to be the key to the most profound and secret recesses of the divine mystery. Man, because he is a mental being, is prone to give the highest importance to the thinking mind and its reason and will, and to its way of approach and effectuation of truth. And even he is inclined to hold that there is no other. The heart, with its emotions and incalculable movements, is to the eye of his intellect an obscure, uncertain, and often a perilous and misleading power, which needs to be kept in control by the reason and the mental will and intelligence. So, this is the attitude of man in common. You see, because man is an intellectual or supposed to be a thinking mind, we give more importance to the mind than to heart. In fact, the whole of the Western world doesn't even accept the importance of the heart and emotion. They say you must be rational, a rational understanding, a rational approach to life. So they give extraordinary value to this rational approach, and saying all these emotions, don't get into emotions. That is confusing, is misleading. So they try all the time to have a rational approach. But is that truly the right thing to be done in yoga? Rationalism is good, mind is good in its own place, and yet there is in the heart or behind it a profounder mystic light, which, if not what we call intuition, for that, though not of the mind, yet descends through the mind, has yet a direct touch upon truth and is nearer to the divine than the human intellect in its pride of knowledge. So this is Aurobindo's comment. Mind and rationalism has a good place, but it is the heart, the emotions, which have a greater direct touch upon truth and is nearer to the divine. So if we want to follow this integral yoga, the emotional approach is as important, if not more important, than the intellectual approach. Intellectually, we should have knowledge. We should concentrate, we should have a clear mind. But let's not dethrone heart and the emotions, because that has the profounder mystic light. You see? And in fact, something to this order the mother said once when I was in Aurobindo, I remember, that the poorest man in India, the poorest man or the poorest peasant, I think she used the word, is closer to God in his heart than the high intellects of the West. So you see, where is the value system that we have? In India especially, we have always had a heart approach, or approach of the heart. The West is mostly approach of the mind. But we, being closer to heart, are in a way closer, have a direct touch upon earth. That is why we can say India is a spiritual country, because it is moving towards the divine through the heart level. That's why we are supposed to be an emotional race. And sometimes we get into problems. But basically,
we have this emotional approach. We have relations, we have this, I've seen it when you go out to the West and you see each person calling each other by name, but in India it never happens. Elder person you call uncle, auntie, bhai sahab, brother. There's always this internal relation that takes place. So there is this emotional approach which is stronger, and if this is the scenario we have, ultimately it is better that we approach the divine through the heart, because as it is, the heart has a profounder mystic light. And according to the ancient teaching, the seat of the immanent heart, immanent divine, the hidden Purusha, is in the mystic heart, the secret heart cave, Hridaye Guhayam, as the Upanishad puts it. And according to the experience of many yogis, it is from its depths that there comes the voice or the breath of the inner oracle. You see the advantage of this heart. It has, by an innate structure, innate capacity to go towards the divine. It's kind of a longing for the divine. Of course, on the surface of it, we already see the relationship of the heart. But if this can intensify, it becomes something towards the divine, an attraction towards the divine. This is much easier than the intellectual attraction to the divine. Intellectually, you may get a little, you may have an admiration, that this is spiritual life, this is a spiritual man. Mind can admire, but the heart adores the divine. So this is the importance of the heart. He says that there is the mystic, in the mystic heart there is the immanent divine, and all of us know the seat of the psychic being is behind the heart. So everything, the psychic being, the emotional heart, then the approach to the divine is in the heart. So telling about that, then I come to the main point here, where I would say the integral yoga, refusing to rely upon the fragile stuff of mental and moral ideals, puts its whole emphasis in this field on three central dynamic processes. So this is the important thing. What are the three dynamic processes of integral yoga? The development of the true soul or psychic being to take the place of the false soul of desire. So the first emphasis is turning to the psychic being, which alone can take care, govern your outer instrumentation. So first movement is to go towards the psychic. Second, the sublimation of human into divine love. I remember this is the flower that Mother used to give us, the red rose. That is the human love turned towards the divine. So we have this factor of love in all our relations. That's full in India, everywhere we have this relations of love. It's either a daughter or a son or a pitaji or a grandmother. But then the mother always gave us a message, turn this life, love, human love, to the divine. So there has got to be this transfer of love from the human to the divine. So that's the second important thing. And then the elevation of consciousness from its mental to its spiritual and supramental plane. So we have three things. Go towards the psychic, turn the human love which is abundant in our life to the divine, and thirdly, as he puts it beautifully, turns elevation of consciousness from its mental to the supramental level. Well, that's a bit difficult. You see, the heart level we can still understand. That's why sometimes when people do not have a channel of human love, we say it's difficult for you to do yoga. Because if you want to love the divine, there's got to be a basic experience of love itself on the human level, which you can then turn. But if some people are so dry, they say, no, I don't want any human love, any relationship, nothing, they kind of hate any kind of human relations, it will be difficult for them to turn to divine. Because human love is a kind of a preparation, it's a kind of a experience of what love is. What love, the sense of sacrifice comes in. What we are doing the whole chapter is sacrifice. So the human love is the first experience of sacrifice and surrender, which are most needed when you turn to God. That's the essential thing we said, that the only approach and the best approach to the divine is through surrender. And for that we have a kind of a preparation in human love. So first one psychic, second human love, third the mentality, that's the mental consciousness to a spiritual consciousness, supramental consciousness. Now for that is a different journey. Going towards the psychic is your horizontal thing, going within. But changing the mental into the spiritual and supramental, you have to go beyond the mind. I mean, those are more difficult efforts. That means you have to reach the illumined mind and the higher mind and the intuitive mind and the overmind. But that's also a path, which in Savitri, Ashwapati had taken that route, whereas Savitri herself took the psychic path. So these two are essential, and then the human love turned into towards the divine. That's the third one. Now there is an extraordinary 1 or 2 pages here. Now we have this very beautiful passage on what is said, the development of the true soul or psychic being to take place of the false soul of desire. This is page 138. Now he is going to describe about the psychic being. If you remember in the previous class we had discussed that there is this approach of the psychic. You have to go within. That's the surest way and the best way in spirituality. But what exactly is this psychic? How does it act? So turn to page 138 and you see, it is the very nature of the soul or the psychic being to turn toward the divine truth as the sunflower to the sun. It accepts and clings to all that is divine or progressing towards divinity, and draws back from all that is a perversion or a denial of it, from all that is false and undivine. You see, this is why we rationally should understand that what is the importance of the psychic realization. You see, Sri Aurobindo is not speaking about mental silence, he is not speaking about gaining great knowledge. He is saying gain this contact. Why? Because the psychic being is the only element in us, in the human beings, which is directly connected with the divine. The mind, the body, the emotion, they are not connected. They are on the contrary in great falsehood. So the psychic being clings to the divine and draws back from all that is perversion or a denial of it. You see, the more psychic you become, one of the symptoms, if I can call, that you can see in the outer life is that person draws back, that is, from all that is a perversion and denial of it, from all that is false and undivine. You see, if a person is very sensitive to this undivine, to the perverted, to the falsehood, to the lies, then your sensitivity increases. Why? I cannot stand this person. And sometimes it could be our mental prejudgment, our prejudices. But we have to be careful to see, is it as Aurobindo says, the false soul of desire. Sometimes we have our own desires, and out of desire we reject some persons, some events, some incidents. But then psychic being says that goes towards the divine. Yet the soul is at first but a spark and then a little flame of Godhead burning in the midst of a great darkness. For the most part of it is veiled in its inner sanctum, and to reveal itself, it has to call on the mind, the life force, and the physical consciousness, and persuade them as best as they can to express it. Ordinarily, it succeeds at most in suffusing their outwardness with its inner light and modifying with its purifying fineness their dark obscurities or their coarser mixture. You see, that's the tragedy of man now. I mean, now means not today, not the century. It's been eternally there. What is it? That the psychic being is in the midst of a great darkness. That means imagine the physical, the vital, the mental, and inside is the psychic. So there are three major layers or three heavy walls around it, which are preventing the psychic to come out, to throw its light out. Because there's a thick partitions, the mental, the vital. So what do we do in sadhana? We have to thin down these physical, mental, vital walls or veils, whatever you want to call. You see, for example, if you have this curtain, I don't see the light from outside penetrating. But if I have a thinner curtain, the pink one there, light comes through. So similarly, if there is a heavy curtain of the vital consciousness, the psychic being cannot throw its light out. So we have to thin down these veils. And how do you thin down? The mental, the vital, physical. Not through any puja, not through any yajna, not through any of these rituals. All these rituals, etc., are humbug. They do not help you to get that inner psychic light. They may egoistically satisfy you that you are a religious person, you are a spiritual person because you are doing these pujas and ceremonies. But for the transformation, they have no use. So Sri Aurobindo is saying, ordinarily it succeeds at most in suffusing their outwardness with its inner light and modifying with its purifying fineness. So in all of us, the psychic is constantly trying to illuminate the mental, the vital and the physical. I mean, you see, it's the divine element within us. So sometimes, my mind may be more transparent, very quiet. Why do you want to do these meditations? Not because you want to silence your mind. But if you silence your mind, if you can succeed in becoming quiet, then there is the message of the psychic being. When there is a pool of water, if the turbid waves on that, you cannot see. When you see in the full moon night the sea, huge waves. You cannot see the moon on the waves. But if the sea is quiet, you see the reflection. So exactly the human situation is like that. We have to be quiet mentally, vitally, so that we can reflect the divine from above and give chance to the psychic being to penetrate and come out into the world. So you see, this is the necessity of the meditation, necessity of quietness, necessity of being calm. Which in other yogas they say, no, I have got to be calm because I want to be a great sattvic person, a great religious man. What is the purpose of becoming quiet? Why do you want to attain mental quietness? What for? No, that's a target. My guru has said mental silence is the best thing and the highest thing. But here Sri Aurobindo is giving a spiritual higher explanation and reason that you be quiet on all the levels so that the divine may reflect himself in your being, so that the psychic can come out more forward. So that is very important. Otherwise, if I have to silence my mind per se, I am not interested. Why should I silence my thoughts? I have brilliant thoughts, I can write, I can do poetry, I can do plan, I can organize. Let my mind be active. But then it would be, Mr. Reddy, you are a good mind. But there is a limitation. This far and no further. So if you want to go further even in your mental activity and physical activity, be quiet, be calm, don't get perturbed, don't get disturbed. The only matlab, the only reason, the only raison d'etre is that I may reflect the divine will in me. That's the truth of the thing. See how suddenly the whole thing becomes spiritual? I'm no more silencing the mind to enjoy a peaceful life. I'm not attached to anybody, I'm distracted. No, that's not the purpose of a quiet and silencing the mind. The purpose is to know the divine will, and the divine will not reflect on a perturbed being. So we would say, so that is why the psychic being is hardly able to come out, because we are constantly mental bazaar, the emotional atyachar, I don't know, there is a new word, emotional atyachar, the physical thing, physical hyperactivity. So everywhere you are hyper. And the poor psychic is saying, "Arey yaar, thoda to thanda raho, cool raho, I want to come out." We don't give chance to our own psychic being. We are so busy physically, mentally, widely doing things, I have no time for God. That's the ultimate. We have no time for God. We may claim a lot of things, but do we really sit down for God? So you would say, even when there is a formed psychic being able to express itself with some directness in life, it is still in all but a few, a smaller portion of the being, no bigger in the mass of the body than the thumb of a man, was the image used by the ancient seers. And it is not always able to prevail against the obscurity and ignorant smallness of the physical consciousness, the mistaken sureness of the mind, or the arrogance and vehemence of the vital nature. This soul is obliged to accept the human mental, emotive, and sensational life as it is, its relations, its activities, its cherished forms and figures. It has to labor to disengage and increase the divine element in all this relative truth mixed with continual falsifying error. This love turned to the users of the animal body, or the satisfaction of the vital ego. This life of an average manhood, shot with rare and pale glimpses of Godhead and the darker luridities of the demon and the brute. Beautiful. You see, he is really describing the struggle of the psychic being. I mean, we think the psychic being is divine, why can't it do things? No, it cannot do things because we have put these great walls around it. So he is pathetically telling us that this soul is obliged to accept the human mental, etc., its relations, its cherished forms and figures. It has to labor to disengage and increase the divine element. I think that's what God also does. In yoga also the same thing. What is it? That this inner soul, the psychic being, accepts our relations, accepts, as he puts it, our relations, activities, cherished forms and figures. So in the beginning, when you are growing, what is the process? You see, I'm growing up, becoming a young man, then middle-aged man. But in this span of 20-30 years, I've built relations, situations, events, jobs, institutions. So the psychic being is telling us, okay, I will accept all that. I'll try to help you also a little bit, as much as I can, as much as you allow me to do. But then psychic would say, it's kind of, it's kind of romancing with the outer nature. You see, you are attracting the outer nature, saying, I will do exactly as you want, whatever you want to do. But on condition that after a while you have to obey me. Now I will obey you. There must be a turning in the life where you have to obey the psychic. See, in the beginning, Pyar ki kahani, the psychic being tells the outer nature, okay, do what you want, I am with you. So Prakriti says, my God, look at this Purusha, is all with me, and she gets attracted. But then the Purusha says, now that you have started loving me, I think you should obey me a little bit. And that's where we go wrong. Our nature, and we have gotten so used to do whatever we want, when the psychic says, no beta, don't do this, this is not for this life. Then you say, how can I leave my relation? How can I leave this money? How can I leave this comfort? For last 45 years you allowed me to do that. Ab kitna baki hai, another 20 years chalna do. So the bargaining is, I've been used to this kind of life. So how can the psychic being say, leave alone all the ACs and all the good food and be a simple ascetic people? So there is a struggle, what Sri Aurobindo says beautifully. It has to labor to disengage and increase the divine element in all this relative truth and mix with continual falsifying error. But in another book, in Savitri, I think, he has a magnificent, maybe it's in Canto 2 or 3, or Canto, Book 1. He says, in the beginning, the Purusha gives in to Prakriti, so that later he may win over the Prakriti. I think if I don't know, or if anybody has a love affair or has married out of love affair, not arranged marriages, you will see this phenomenon. While a girlfriend and boyfriend, who has the upper hand? Well, I know you will not tell me. It's the girl who has the upper hand. The boy goes around the girl and says, yes, जो तुम्हें चाहिए I can do, आसमान से तारे भी उठा लाऊंगा. Because this is the initial truth. Purusha gives in to Prakriti so that he wins her over, and then starts the sadhana, purification, the instrumentation. Then he says, you become my instrument. So that is the human relation, that is the divine relation. Purusha attracts Prakriti so that Prakriti may later on reflect the Purusha, become a servant, an obedient servant, slave of Purusha. If you don't build any relation with Prakriti, how can you say? That's why maybe sometimes love marriage is good. You build a relation with the other person, you know each other, and then the affair begins. So this love affair between the psychic being and the external nature is of immense use. But unfortunately, Prakriti says, well, I'm sorry, I've done all these years, I do not obey you. ज़्यादा कुछ दबाव डालेगा तो मैं छोड़ के चले जाऊंगी. There is a threat also. So there is a tension between Purusha and Prakriti. And that's what is the human nature too. That's what Mother was telling. At the age of 60, if you start going to the Char Dham and think that you are becoming spiritual, sorry. Your nature has gotten used to 60 years of a particular rhythm of life. So nothing can change at that age. So this is the struggle between the psychic being and the outer nature. You see, this love turned to the uses of the animal body or the satisfaction of the vital ego. This love of an average manhood shot with rare and pale glimpses of Godhead. You see, this is, I admire Sri Aurobindo because he brings in such intensity of thought in every phrase. That's why I'm saying I had a great plan to do this and that. I'm not able to move forward. He is there everywhere. So he says, this poor psychic being is trying to disengage from all this falsity and increase the divine element. And this love turned to the uses of the animal body or the satisfaction of the vital ego. We say we love God, we love man, we love woman. But what is this love? It is only using the other person's body. Is using the other person for the satisfaction of your own vital desires? Is love really so sacred that we claim it to be, that I'm in love with my wife, with my husband, with my children? He says, go deeper, see a little inside. There's nothing much in the so-called great LOVE. It's purely a selfishness. When Sri Aurobindo wrote that in the library and I was teaching in the class, it was such a big slap on our face. He says, you people claim that you are great lovers and it's all desire. You want to be loved the way you want to be loved. The moment your wife or your spouse loves you differently, then I get angry. I say, no, this is not the way I wanted you to love me. I expected this kind of a love from you. So you see, love conditional is selfish. You don't love each other for what they are actually, but because you have started compromising, you say it's fine. So love, there's nothing called love in human relation. It's all selfishness, it's all selfish motivation. He uses, as he puts a strong word, this life of an average manhood shot with rare and pale glimpses of Godhead. So poor psychic being accepts your superficial loves, perverted love, false love, as much as your mind, which has all its plans and ambitions, it has got to once in a while you think of a divinity and then you're attracted, charmed by the divine. So what we are trying to explain here is how much psychic being, how much the psychic being is trying to penetrate. It has got a whole adversary forces, the mental, the vital, physical. And we unfortunately, in a stupid understanding of religion, have thought only after 60 the religion begins. And after 60, how can there be religion? Because you have already formed every part of your being. So nothing can change. So he is saying, unerring in the essence of its will, it is obliged often under the pressure of its instruments to submit to mistakes of action, wrong placement of feeling, wrong choice of person, errors in the exact form of its will, in the circumstances of its expression of the infallible inner ideal. You see, Aurobindo is describing this at great length only to tell us, one, the difficulty of your soul to influence you. We all want to have the psychic being, we all want to have the soul darshan, atma darshan. How many of us can have it? Very rare. Precisely because of our own outer walls. So it is obliged often under the pressure of its instrument to submit to mistakes. You may say, why is it that my soul is not guiding me? You're not listening. We don't listen to our soul. The soul is telling sometimes, but as you say, the inner voice, how many people are having the inner voice? We are so busy with the chatter. We have the chatter of the outside world gets into our ears and it is so large in our mind that the psychic voice is hardly heard. That's why, remember, I read out that the most disastrous thing in yoga is to chatter. Because the more you chatter, the sound of your chatter fills up your mind, fills up your being, and the feeble, mild voice of the psychic is not heard in this chatter of the world outside. So that's why perhaps she calls it the most disastrous thing in yoga. And then, so this psychic being accepts the mistakes, wrong placement of feelings, wrong choice of person. You see, yes, we may be taking a wrong person in your life, but the psychic being says, all right, I will accept these wrong persons, wrong relations, wrong instances, wrong circumstances, but through those mistakes of yours, I will take you to God. Because when you are young, when you wanted to love somebody, marry somebody, you didn't talk to your Atman and say, should I marry him or her? What was the consent you took? You took the consent of your vital, if you are mental, and you got attracted to something. You say, yes, this is the best person, best spouse I can ever have. So you didn't consult this psychic being, but you wanted this relation. But later you say, my God, it's a mistake. But psychic being says, mistake, now you have realized, fine. I will take you from this mistake itself to the divine. And you see, 50% of those people who have come to the ashram have had this kind of a tragic life. Separation, problems, illness. They say, I come to the ashram. And every person has a beautiful story how they have turned to the mother and Aurobindo. And then when you really look back and you say, my God, I am grateful to that problem, I am grateful to that person, I am grateful to that instance, because of whom I have come to the divine. So that's exactly the psychic being which does the problems. That it says, through difficulties, I will take you through difficulties only to bring you to the divine. I mean, this is something so general. I mean, you go and touch an ashramite and you get a story out of that. A similar story, circumstances different. In fact, there is a beautiful narration by Panditji. Once there was an American who came to the ashram. I told you in the other classes. And she had some skin disease. And she went to the best doctors in America, she went to Australia, she went to this country, that country. Nothing happened. She came to India, came to Pondicherry. And she heard that there's somebody called a mother here, a spiritual guru. So with that expectation that maybe the spiritual guru will cure me, she went to the mother. Panditji arranged the darshan. And she returned, and within few days the skin problem was over. What happened? It's a psychic being. With mother explains that her soul had this so-called disease on the body, so that she may come to me. You see sometimes how the soul uses all these miseries to bring you to the divine. Now that the soul has seen the mother, is happy that the soul has seen the divine supreme. Now the soul says, why should I want your disease on the skin? So it wiped it out. So what I am trying to say is this, that through all circumstances, the soul is working itself or working out to see that you turn to the divine. So that's how I think almost we have to take every circumstance in our life coming from the divine. कोई अच्छा है, कोई बुरा है, कोई circumstance. But if I can say, Ma, this is your will. Because after some time you will realize that because of this circumstance or this person or that man or this woman, you have come closer to him. In fact, I've had this experience. You see, I was in Pondicherry University teaching to my MA class. I was supposed to become a lecturer or a reader there, because I was doing my post-graduation. So it was an obvious choice that somebody, as you say, the insider, becomes a professor. I was, my head of the department was happy with me. I had done my PhD with him. Everything was fine. But when my application went for becoming a professor at Pondicherry University or the readership, somebody, without telling me, he said, Dr. Reddy is overage or overage for this post. So the application was rejected. So I did not get engaged in Pondicherry University. In the beginning it hurt you. I said, my God, such a beautiful opportunity. University is just close by, I am in Pondicherry. But then if you look back and you say, it is because of that rejection I am sitting here today talking to all of you. Sum and substance. So what is wrong? Who is wrong? Nothing. Really, that the HOD was my good friend, a very close friend of ours. And yet he put a block telling he is overage, so we cannot accept him. So the doors were slammed on me. So Pondicherry University, I could never become a professor. And in a university, if you get a professorship, if your collar is up, you have got a great responsibility, respectability, your salary 50,000, 70,000. I wouldn't have quit Pondicherry University and there wouldn't have been a sakar. But if there were no sakar, who would suffer? My soul. My soul would say, I had come to do this work for the mother, and you have gone to do a work for your mental and vital satisfaction to university. The whole life is wasted. So I really thank that man who wrote that sentence that this Dr. Reddy is overaged. So after that, so many things have happened. Every time I like to thank the other negative person who has stopped me, who has blocked me, who has not made me to do things. But so when the Mother Shobhana tells us that all circumstances are helpful to yoga if you look at them with a different attitude. If it is a normal human attitude, then I would have gone to the professor, banged him, and then a quarrel. But a mother immediately took me out to Bangkok, to this. So the whole process is so beautiful. And so now I'm learning to see that there's nothing wrong with that person, with that incident. And of course I do get disturbed. But if I can impose this as, no, Ma, you have given me this instance. I don't know now what's good out of it, what good comes out of it. But at least utna to samajh aaya ki, yeah, I think take it easy. There is a divine hand behind this. I have to bear some kind of a suffering, 2 din, 4 din, 5 din, 5 mahina. But this too will pass. And then when the cloud passes, you see the sun was always there behind it. खाली मुझे ही नहीं दिख रहा था because of the cloud of my ego, cloud of my understanding, cloud of my... But the cloud moves. So this is our life, and that's what is the struggle of the psychic being. Yet there is a divination within it which makes it a surer guide than the reason or than even the highest desire, and through apparent errors and stumblings its voice can still lead better than the precise intellect and the considering mental judgment. But it is only when the life turns toward the divine that the soul can truly come forward and impose its power on the outer members. For itself a spark of the divine, to grow in flame toward the divine is its true life and its very reason of existence. So friends, the soul comes forward only when it turn to a spiritual life. If you turn to all the materialistic comforts, you can become the president of India. But soul will say, Vela, better you enjoy your presidentship. I'll wait for your next life. You see the importance of spiritual life? Because at least what happens, we have an ideal now. I may not be able to follow it 100% or 90% or 30% or 10%. But at least I've turned to the sun. There's a famous Plato story, the man in the cave. You see, at least if the sun is behind you, what do you see in front of you? सामने क्या दिखती है अगर सन पीछे है तो? Shadow. You are seeing your own shadow, your own darkness. So the whole world, whole life is full of that darkness and the shadow and the confusion and all that. But when you face the sun, where is the shadow? पीछे हो गया. So all our problems, difficulties, they are left behind. But you have to turn to the sun. So he is saying, it is only when the life turns toward the divine that the soul can truly come forward and impose its power on the outer members, mental, vital, physical. For itself a spark of the divine, to grow in flame towards the divine is its true life. So our soul is eager to move on, progress, influence the outer being. But if only we can give it some time. The soul says, I am all ready, I am eager, every time I am trying to get some chance to influence you. So sometimes we have the right thing, it is because the right suggestion has come from inside, the mind has received it. You have decided rightly because it's the psychic being which has given you the decision. A spark that gets through all those difficult doors. At a certain stage in the yoga, when the mind is sufficiently quietened and no longer supports itself at every step on the sufficiency of its mental certitudes, when the vital has been steadied and subdued and is no longer constantly insistent on its own rash will, demand and desire, when the physical has been sufficiently altered not to bury altogether the inner flame and inmost being hidden within and felt only in its rare influences, is able to come forward and illumine the rest and take up the lead of the sadhana. I've just explained to you the need of the quietening, the need quietened mind, a subdued vital and an altered physical. I mean, Aurobindo being a master of language, you admire the words he uses. Quietened mind, quieted. I'm sorry. Quieted, quieted. Well, I will not explain. You look it up. Quieted, and then vital that has been studied and subdued. Steadied and subdued. So all this emotional atyachar, a beautiful Hindi song, will not help you. So this atyachar should not be there. It must be all under control. You hate somebody, you love somebody, you throw tantrums. And then lastly, the physical that has been sufficiently altered not to bury altogether the inner plane. Physical consciousness, yes, we are all having a physical body. Well, somebody has a backache, somebody has this. But that's not the question. Is the physical working for the divine work, or is the physical trying to satisfy your desires, your lower nature? That physical is a bad physical, which is subservient and a slave to your desires only. But if a body is trying to manifest something of the divine work, that physical is right. Although it may be full of diseases, full of problems. But at least the body consciousness is saying, Mother, I am giving myself to you. So when such a thing happens, Sri Aurobindo says, then the inmost being hidden within and felt only in rare cases is able to come forward and illumine the rest. So this turning to spiritual life is of great importance for our normal common life. Its character is a one-pointed orientation towards the divine or the highest, one-pointed and yet plastic in action and movement. It does not create a rigidity of direction like the one-pointed intellect or a bigotry of the regnant idea or impulse like the one-pointed vital force. It is at every moment and with a supple sureness that it points the way to the truth, automatically distinguishes the right step from the false, etc. Its action is like a searchlight showing up all that has to be changed. It has in it a flame of will insistent on perfection, on alchemic transmutation of all the inner and outer existence. So, Sri Aurobindo is describing here the character. Well, I'll skip that, but I'll just try to understand. One thing is, there's a tremendous plasticity in a psychic approach. Mine, it has a rigidity. This way I think, this way I feel. But the psychic being has no rigidities. It is very subtle. Sometimes it may see this, the next moment the same person can be different. But the mentally if you approach, no way. You have once said no is no. But a psychic approach, it broadens the understanding. He says no. Maybe this circumstance is good for me, for my growth. So there's a great amount of plasticity, and there is a unique distinction, the unique drive to go towards the divine. And its action is like a searchlight showing up all that has to be changed. You see, we have lots of problems in our life. And the worst thing, they are repeated problems. Have you ever thought why the same problem comes again and again? Every time we have seen the same problem comes in. Sometimes the face is different, sometimes the man or the woman is different. But ultimately it is the same problem. So why is it that it's coming every time? Because it says the searchlight showing up all that has to be changed. Bar the same problem is coming. So once you go back and say, hey, there is a meaning in that. Something has to change. I am being resistant somewhere. Somewhere in my vital or physical there is a narrow vision. So if you start looking at yourself and says, no, I have to change. Otherwise this ailment, this thing is repeatedly coming. I don't want it anymore. So you change yourself. So this circumstances, as I said about the American woman, is created by your psychic being so that you may change in your nature. As long as you don't change, the same problem will keep recurring. So that's why Mother Sri Aurobindo said, don't come to ashram to avoid problems in your life. Because the same problem, either you're in Pondicherry or Delhi or Calcutta or Bombay, it will be the same. The geographical location doesn't really change your problems. So, she would say this psychic being is the searchlight. Wherever there is a problem in your mental, vital, physical, it throws the light and tells you, Anand, this is what you need to change. Work on that. And if in your ambition, if your vital desire, you say, nahi, baad mein dekha jayega, fine. After 3 months, the problem will come back. Then the psychic says, didn't I tell you 3 months back you should change that attitude? You didn't listen to me. Fine. Suffer it again. So this is a fantastic job of the psychic being a searchlight and showing us what you need to change. Are Gayatri, Deepshika take it. It sees the divine essence everywhere, but rejects the mere mask and the disguising figure. And there is, of course, one paragraph which is I think a remarkable paragraph, the last paragraph of this Ascent of the Sacrifice. And it begins with, but the most intimate character. Before that, I have just one line to tell you. It insists on truth, on will and strength and mastery, on joy and love and beauty, but on a truth of abiding knowledge that surpasses the mere practical momentary truth of the ignorance, on an inward joy and not on the mere vital pleasure, etc., on the love winged upwards and not tied to the stake of egoistic craving or with his feet sunk in the mire. Well, this we have covered. Its will is for the divinization of life, the expression through it of a higher truth, its dedication to the divine and the eternal. Well, this is its characteristic. You see, in this para, as I told you, there is the nature and the characteristic of psychic being. And in the last paragraph, what I was going to tell you is how does the psychic being work? Because once we have seen, is like the spotlight, making you work, change your nature. And in a manner, if you have this understanding now, you can look at life in a different way. That means every circumstance in our life comes only to help us, to push us towards the divine. That's the summum bonum of all the life's problems. It is because, as it says here, its will is for the divinization of life, the expression through of a higher truth, its dedication to the divine and the eternal. So the psychic being, the soul in us, is here in my body, in these bodies, in those bodies, with the sole purpose of taking us towards the divine. How it takes us, it depends on our resistance. It depends on our acquiescence. It depends on our surrender. If you don't surrender, if you are rigid and resistant, the path will be longer. But the main thing is, it insists for the divinization of life. So it may use every method, every means, good, bad, chota, mota, bada, chota. But the whole purpose is to move, to push you towards that. So that is the nature of the psychic and the characteristic. And I have a last paragraph which I will take up in our next class, that is on 22nd, 21st for tomorrow darshan. 22nd we'll meet, and then I hope to start the Ascent of the Sacrifice section 2. Yeah.